My name is Leela, and I'm from TREES. We are the lead organization for the environmental cluster, also known as B.E.A.C.C.H, of the CSO platform for reform that is made up of over 100 CSOs and organizations across Malaysia. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you today for B.E.A.CC's webinar, GE15, How Can the Rakyat Help Save the Environment? I will be moderating today's webinar. The Manifesto Rakyat is a collaborative project between Gabungan Bertindak Malaysia, GBM, and the CSO platform for reform. The project represents the diverse voices in society and reflects what the people want, demand, and care about in the various policy areas. The manifesto is intended to serve as a contemporary reference for political parties and an advocacy platform for civil society as a whole. The manifesto mentions specific ideas contributed by civil society and the general public in their own individual or organizational names. Made up of 5 areas, the environment chapter of the Manifesto Rakyat covers climate change action, transparency in decision-making processes, natural resources conservation, environmental impact assessment, and sustainable development. We are honored and excited to have with us today our 2 speakers, Dr. Lim Ji Han. He is the overall coordinator of the Manifesto Rakyat, and Encik Muhammad Shani bin Abdullah, Chairman of SASDEN Malaysia. Encik Shani was also involved in coordinating the environment chapter. I will now hand over the session to Cik Siti Fatima, to talk about the housekeeping rules. Siti.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So I will just share my screen again. So for the housekeeping rules, first of all, thank you and welcome to everyone who made time to join us tonight. So for your name, please make sure that your Zoom ID follows this format, your name, and if you are representing your school, institution, or organization, please also include that in your Zoom ID. So the housekeeping rules, first and foremost, please be mindful that this session will be recorded. Please stay muted at all times unless there is a need to speak during the Q&A session. Use the chat function for any questions or feedback during the presentation to avoid interruptions. And you may use the raise hand icon to indicate if you would like to speak during the Q&A. So that is all for me. Thank you for your kind attention. I will pass it back to Ms. Leela. Thank you.
Thank you, Siti. Dr. Lim Ji Han is our first speaker tonight. Ji Han is a scientifically trained public policy researcher. He holds a PhD in infection biology from the Hannover Medical School, Germany. He is also the co-founder of the Agora Society Malaysia and an ex-co member of Gabungan Bertindak Malaysia and Penang Forum. He is also a columnist for the Malaysian Insight and Oriental Daily and is currently a senior researcher at Third World Network. The title of his presentation is Introduction of Manifesto Rakyat, Why It Matters to Environment Causes in Malaysia. A reminder to everyone to type in your questions and feedback in the chat for the Q&A session after Jihan's presentation. I'll now pass the session over to Dr. Lim Ji Han.
Thank you, Leila. Thank you, Leila, for the kind introduction. And thanks to the invitation from the CSO platform for reform environment cluster. Fellow speaker, Muhammad Shani, Siti, and dear participants. It's my honor tonight to speak to you, to introduce you the Manifesto Rakyat. Let me share the screen. Can you see it? Yep. I'm the project coordinator for the Manifesto Rakyat. This idea actually born first conceived in the GBM as I'm as the head of a political cluster in GBM. And why we need to have this Manifesto Rakyat? I think that is the presentation they want to brief you tonight. How can we use this Manifesto Rakyat to advance your cause? For tonight, we're talking about saving the environment. So, a lot of time, politicians ask, apa lagi rakyat mahu? It can be like Chinese, it can be Melayu, it can be Indian. But, you know, sometimes the politicians and the people in the government, they just lose touch with the people's issues. Of course, they can read all the news carried by media outlets, online, social media, but there's a lot of issues on the ground. For example, for the past 2 years, we have undergone pandemic, we have undergone the emergency period, and there's like a twin major challenge that time. One is about the livelihood, one is about life, how to actually get through the pandemic is actually it's a serious challenge that time. But what we saw in the past 2 years or more is that politicians, they are in their own world, they're in their back room playing their own political games. They come out with certain move, and then for after that, there's a lot of political tussle between the Muhyiddin camp and then the UMNO, and a lot of the issues people actually want, they don't talk about it that much. So now, this year, people talking about election year, they start talking about people's issues. But have we heard about any ideas coming from them, any proposals to solve major problems? Perhaps they should listen to what the people actually want. So in terms of the environment, there are a lot of issues also for the past years. Just end of last year, I think this is a worldwide news. Malaysia has a serious flood, especially in the Klang Valley area. You can see the photos at the top left corner and the bottom left corner. It's terrible. And then also there are landslides. On the bottom right, just not too long ago, a few months ago in Ampang, you see landslide, and then that caused a lot of damage to the properties and lives. And on the left side, as you see some, there's also a landslide in Penang because of a construction of a highway that caused 9 lives being lost. They are construction workers. And why? One thing is that we understand that there's a lot to do with the change of the environment. If you look at the top right corner, a lot of deforestation happening in this country. Mind you, there are people living in the forest near the communities. They are forced to change their lifestyle as well. And that actually brings a lot of problems to the people, especially when you have a well-functioning forest like the North Kuala Langat Forest Reserve. Government want to de-gazette it for development. Yeah, so then they come back to ask what people want. There's a lot of consequences of all this action. So why we have this Manifesto Rakyat is we want to collect the voices from the people. And all these people actually have names, have faces. They really have their voices. That's why this is called Manifesto Rakyat. It's a way that we go to the ground, listen to people, collect their voices, and come back with something useful. We want people's solution. Because people experience all these issues, they actually have the on-the-ground observation and insights, how they go about it. Something probably the politician don't know yet, or the policymaker don't know yet. So that's why we want to have this serve as a microsome of diverse voices from people. What we want is we aspire for a harmonious, equitable, and progressive nation. It's a cooperative project between the Gabungan Petindak Malaysia, which consists of 28 members, and CSO Platform for Reform. consists of 102 members currently. The three objectives is to build a broad and inclusive social coalition. We want to identify whoever comes together, work on the similar areas. This manifesto Rakyat also emphasized on the idea of ownership and empowerment, because if you look at our manifesto Rakyat, you will see a lot of people actually bring up their ideas. They give proposal, give solution to the various problems. You can see actually who said it, who proposed it. So this is something that is different to all other manifestos that we've seen by the political parties. And hence, because of all this idea ownership, this actually empower the activists and the organization to advance their cause, because they can find their friends, their allies to together build on the similar cause, a similar belief and values. And then lastly, I think this is why tonight this webinar serves as a very good platform and event to persuade you, to actively engage with you, talking to you about the manifesto Rakyat. So these are the political manifesto that you have seen in the past, especially for the general election, the 14th general election. I want to show you the glimpse of some of the things that they propose for the environment for tonight. Then you see how different they structure and why we are different. For example, just to give you the concept difference, what we think about the political party manifesto is usually a very top-down and elitist way of drafting. Usually they don't do much of a consultation, and their main goal is to woo voters. They want your votes. So it has certain vested interests in that. So actually they don't actually represent all Rakyats. They probably have some targeted groups they want to woo. And usually they lack real faces and voices, because we don't know who are the responsible. How can we hold them responsible if we don't know who actually wrote it? They won't hold any responsibility. And a lot of times on paper, after the general election, even if they want the power, they want you to forget. They will say it's just a guideline. It's nothing really legal binding for them to really fulfill them. Yeah. So their manifestos usually focus on the next general election, but ours will take different approach. It's a bottom-up, a grassroots approach. We ask for people's submission, proposals, and we also had a policy town hall for discussion. And we want to gather as diverse, as many voices as possible, so that we form some common interests among the people. And we can identify actually this idea coming from whom, and who are the writers for this manifesto Rakyat. It's all in the document. And we want to make sure that this is interactive. Like now I'm talking to you, and later Jashani will talk about the ideas contained in the environment chapter. So this kind of active engagement is needed, because we are not actually we don't want your vote, we don't need your votes. We want to tell you that these are the people voices and want you to join together to bring our voices even stronger. So manifesto Rakyat, of course, we also want to talk about the next general election, but we have a lifespan beyond general election. So we treat this as a living document. We can make a second version and we can improve it. We can adapt to the new changes. So this project is for the long haul. Just to show you the Buku Harapan, what they talk about the environment protection, they criticize UMNO, for being dictated by large corporations. If you look at the blue highlighted line, and they are crony capitalists. They say that people's welfare, environment, sustainability are not their main concern. Yeah, and then they promise if they are in the government, then they will base on principles of sustainability and sustainable development. In short, they claim that it will be an environment-friendly government. You have seen 22 months how they govern. Of course, if you look at the chapter, many keywords are very positive. Yeah, they have selective goals. For example, they talk about logging quota. They talk about protect marine life, wildlife, and nature. They also talk about carbon emission, renewable energy. They want to stop pollution. They also talk about challenges of climate change. And one keyword they use is the protection of biodiversity. Very nice. Actually, for BN, they also talk about the environment protection. They also talk about the biodiversity, enhancing flora, fauna preservation, forest protection, forest management. All these are keywords, not much of details, yeah, keywords, yeah. But yeah, if you look at the BN manifesto, interestingly, they cite this law, the access of biological resources and benefit sharing. This is something new. And they also talk about reduction of carbon emission without any details. And they talk about solid waste. This is something different. And they work a very nice graphic talking about building more pocket parks. This is very different to the others. This BN manifesto. Yeah. For past the manifesto, Sejahtera, Malaysia Sejahtera, only have 5 points. Now they are government. They're in charge of the environment and natural resources. 5 points only. They talk about the sustainability. They talk about SDG. They say they want to clean the 10 most polluted rivers. And they want to have some kind of a monitoring system for the environment. Now they are in government. They should at least honor the manifesto because they are in the governing position right now. Do they still remember their manifesto? Maybe you should ask. And for manifesto, for the 99%, this is the NGOs and the Party Socialist Malaysia's manifesto. Yeah, so there are some positive things. They talk about gazettement of all permanent forests. They talk about EIA. This is something that others never mentioned. They talk about the rights of the farmers and fisher folk, and talk about renewable energy, green public transport, and sustainable farming. So they have different take on different issues. And I want to also highlight to you the Selangor state government, the Selangor Pakatan Rakyat 2013 manifesto. Probably they want you to forget because they talked about the environment protection, especially at the arrow there. It says that to strengthen efforts to rehabilitate and conserve state forests as major site for water catchments and green lungs. Very nice. So right now it's still the same ruling parties in charge, and they have attempts to degazette some forests, like I mentioned before. So we should not forget what they have said. So come back to this. Apa lagi rakyat mahu? What people want? Actually, there's a lot. Like later, Shani will talk about what contents in the environment chapters to tell you actually what the people actually aspire and want for the environment. And for that, actually, GBN and CSO spent 3 months of campaign asking for proposals. It's not in any random proposal. There's a structure that we want. We want the person to tell us about the problem statement and then tell us about what they believe are the values handling this problem. And then very crucially, it's about the solution. We don't want people just complain, ranting about problems, but think about the solution. So we also gather many good solutions. For example, this one is about apply a climate lens in the environment management from JEDI, from Evelyn Te in Penang. So it gives you some kind of structure. It's a good proposal. So we spent 3 months asking for proposals, and then we had this policy town hall meeting for deliberate all these proposals. Then we come together and finalize the document. Just end of the last month, we launched it for the first time, the Manifesto Rakyat document and the website. So just quickly to tell you what is contained in this Manifesto Rakyat. It actually has 27 policy areas under 3 pillars. The first pillar is on the Bangsa Malaysia, the identity part, the unity in diversity. It talks about the culture, identity, and religious tolerance and harmony. It's very important because it's about the nation building. It's who we are. This is the smallest pillar. The second pillar is about to promote, to improve and defend civil rights and liberties. we all need to talk about the freedom of expression and human rights, because this is all the previous government do not have a very good record in these two, and it needs a serious improvement. And this pillar focusing mainly on the demographic groups such as women, child, the youth, person with disabilities, migrant workers, and so on. And we also have regional chapters on Sabah and Sarawak, because they have very different issues to us, those in the West Malaysia and Peninsula. So we have this focus on those regional issues to give voices to the people on the other side. And third pillar is about towards equitable and democratic society. So these are all the major policy areas such as economic justice, education, health, environment. They are all in this pillar 3, very important. And of course, a lot of issues such as corruption issues, they're all linking. You know, policy don't live in silo, because when you talk about the environment, you need to talk about the education, how people can give raise awareness about environment protection. You also don't want to have corruption to trade the forests for economic gains, for example. So all these are linking in a way, yeah. And actually, we received about 300 public submissions for this Manifesto Rakyat. On environment itself, we received 12 very good ones. And last year, October, we spent 2 days going through more than 200 proposals on the 27 policy areas, literally 2 whole days, yeah? Running on 2 channels, one channel on GBM and another on CSO. We focus a lot of this engagement and discussion because we want to refine the ideas. We want to see it's not just anyone give their own opinions, but also has to stand the test of getting the recognition and acceptance. So it's a good practice to really test out the ideas and deliberate about it. So this element of forming the manifesto, you don't find it in other manifesto. So this short were the events for the 2 days in last October. And coming to the document itself, now you can actually download it. It's the English Manifesto Rakyat is already uploaded and it's already launched. The BM one is still under the final stage of review. The Manifesto Rakyat contains about 223 pages, about 24,000 words, just in terms of the content itself. And if you go to our website, you can also see the manifesto highlight poster. So just in this poster, you will understand what the whole Manifesto Rakyat is about. I know it's quite a thick document, but all the ideas, highlights are in this poster or if you just go like and follow our Facebook, every day we show the poster of the highlights of each policy area. It is available in English and BM. So how is it structured? Later, Shani will talk to you about the content, but this is how it is different to others. You see that, for example, the environment chapter, under the third section, you can see that the manifesto action, we have proposal talking about certain things. For example, I actually talk about to incorporate the green budgeting and planning in the natural resources. And then you see Rexy and Dr. Kam from Penang Hills Watch talk about protect the water catchments. So what are the ideas is listed there? Then you know what ideas they contributed to this chapter. It's all transparent. And yeah, so this is the website, Manifesto Rakyat 2021.org. You can download all the documents. You can also go read individual chapters. You can download the poster as well. What is special about this website is that you can do the endorsement, live endorsement, either by individual or organization. It's possible for the Manifesto Rakyat document and individual chapters. If you you feel more about environment chapters, you just want to endorse the environment chapter, it's fine, it's good. And you are welcome to endorse other chapters. Yeah. So what makes this tick also is we also have another project in GBM to do the MP and adun profiling website. So we also bring the same set of questions. We ask the MPs and the state assembly persons whether they agree on all these stance, for example, about the environment manifesto actions. So voters can judge whether this representative share your values, you can trust them or not. Actually, you can also ask them whether they agree with certain manifesto actions in this document. It's actually voters ketuanan pengundi. We go ask whether they are with us or not, because these are people's voices. So how to endorse is very easy. If you go to the website, on the front page itself, you can go download the poster and the document. But at the bottom of the page, you will see a section to endorse the Manifesto Rakyat. You just need to key in your name, your organization, and email. And then after you submit, tada, you can already see your name appear in the list. Yeah. And if you want to do, for example, the environment chapter, you can also do the same thing. You just go to the all policy areas at the top tab, and you go search for the environment chapter. At the bottom of the chapter, you can either add a comment. Probably you want to say that you have other proposal, you have other ideas. You are welcome to leave your comment. Or another button is for you to endorse the policy. So the same thing, you can put in your name, your organization, and email. Then you submit, and this is the way to endorse. So what Rakyat can do with the Manifesto Rakyat? I think I encourage you to read up, to decide for yourself whether good enough or not for you to endorse. If you think it's really something that you appreciate, that you share the values, you should also endorse and share. Tell your people, your friends, your relatives and people that these are good ideas, and probably the political parties and other organizations should also endorse. We want to grow the list of endorsement to make this a movement. Secondly, yes, please speak to your MP and aduns and other election candidates when the election comes, whether on education issues, on environmental issues, they share their beliefs or values with all this written in the chapter or not. Ask them to declare their stance. We will do that through the MP profiling website, but now we can ask them whether they want to endorse or not. You can talk to them. Yeah. Third, I think you can also speak up. You must have your own ideas also. So you can write your posts, you can even make your own videos and speak out in public about what is your aspiration, what is your voice. Actually, we welcome your voice. We welcome any criticism and feedback. Perhaps we can incorporate your ideas in the next round. So no more discussion. Apa lagi rakyat mahu? Please find it in the Manifesto Rakyat. These are all people's voices. So lastly, I want to give an acknowledgement to the team. It's a team effort. As you can see, there's so many contributors. Many people are working really hard. And I also want to thank not just the working group, I also want to thank the social media team for disseminate the information and setting up the website and things like that. Thank you very much. And I thank you for your attention, and I welcome your question. And I hope I can answer your question. Thanks.
Thank you, Jihan. So we now open the session to questions from everyone. There are a few questions that I had received, but so maybe what I'll do is I'll just start with one question that I received. Jihan, is that okay?
Okay, sure.
All right. It's just to, all right. Can the person asked whether they could ask their resident association, the GMB, the university, social or sports club to endorse the Manifesto Rakyat? or the environment chapter? Can they ask?
Sure. Are they Rakyat? I think they are, right? I think
Yes.
any Rakyat are welcome to endorse. Even I think the MPs are doing, they feel themselves also a Rakyat because probably they also pay tax. So yeah, anyone is welcome. If they agree with the content, why not? We welcome as many as possible. Tell your friends, tell your RA, tell your community groups. If they think that they can agree with what is proposed in the chapter, yes, by all means, please endorse, please endorse. You're welcome.
Right. Does anyone in the audience have a question? You can raise your hand or you can type it in chat. I think one very important thing that we have when you talk about the Manifesto Rakyat, and I think Audrey just also mentioned that she hasn't heard about it before. How can we spread the word? Because it's such a good document. There was so much work that went in to get it produced, and I still remember how hard all of us had to work to get it done. And also, the writers, the contributions, the flow of ideas. I mean, these are really good ideas, and it's like what you said. Apalagi rakyat mau. What does the rakyat want? I think this really this really illustrates and spells it out. But how do we reach out to them? I mean, how do we reach out to the public? How do we reach out to the aduns and all that, so that more people are aware of this document? Because you've now got this really good document, but now how do we reach out?
Thanks, Villa. It's a very good question. This is a people's initiative as well. We want to promote and bring this out to do the outreach to as many people as possible. Not only in Klang Valley, also in the northern part, southern part of Peninsula, and even East Malaysia. So a lot of people have not heard of it because I think just end of last month, we just launched it. We plan to have a roadshow and have a campaign on the ground at different communities and different areas in Malaysia. And I think a lot of places also social media well connected. So of course, we also can do the social media campaign, but I really want to invite you to help spread the words, because it won't be successful if you are not convinced and you don't think it's worth sharing. I think if this can be spread by words of mouth, hands, and to as many social media outreach as possible, then I think this can make it happen. We try our best as an organizer to meet with for example, the political parties before the general election. This is in the GBM and CSO plan. We meet with high level, party leadership, all this, to talk about the manifesto. We actually welcome them to copy people's ideas. We'll tell them that this is what people want. If you just copy, it's perfectly fine, because this is what people want. Yeah. So we actually welcome them to use our idea, and actually it's a good thing, because if they adopt part of our ideas, that means for future, the civil society or the communities have a bridge to talk to whichever party wins in the end. So I think this would build the foundation, the platform for the future engagement. So this is what we imagine and invest it to be. So all the cluster in the CSO platform and GBM, the member organizations, are already told to talk to their own members and organize the meetings to talk to the people on the ground. So right now we're also waiting for the Malay version to be finalized. I think once we have this both language, we can go even further. So I don't think that we can just rely on the membership, the member strength. Yeah, we also want general public to if you have heard about it tonight, and you read up, and if you really agree and think this is a really good idea, tell your friends, tell whoever you know. At least for the general election, if you know about this manifesto, you go check out for other political parties, whether they have election manifesto or not, and compare theirs to ours, to the People's Manifesto.
Right. We have two questions, Jihan, and then we will then pass it over to Shani. Audrey followed up with, what would be the next step? You have actually replied, but I think maybe elaborate a little bit more. What will be the next step, especially in relation to the chapter on the environment? So what's the next step for the environment chapter?
Yeah, of course, I think the environment cluster will have our own strategy to lobby certain parties and talk to certain people. But I think those proposals are very good in their own merits. If you listen to Encik Shani's presentation later, I think these are very useful to stop certain kind of problems. For example, the deforestation. We know that the state governments, especially the Chief Minister of Menteri Besar, they have their own power to do so at their whims. Actually, this is their power, but we actually have something in our proposal to actually make it more democratic, to go through more check and balance, so that if they say they want to balance the economic growth and the environment protection, they really should do so for the environment protection. Yeah, so right now, seems like they want to have their own economic development and have little thought about the environment impact. So we want to do the real balance through the check and balance measures that we propose in the manifesto, Rakyat environment chapters. So go read it up. I think those are good ideas that we can push as a whole. Yeah.
There are two very good questions, but I think we'll hold on, Jihan, and we'll try and get both you and Shani to answer them in the general questions Q&A session later. I think it'll be a very good discussion based on those two questions. Thank you so much, Jihan, and thank you everyone for your questions. Before I call on Shani, we would like to ask everyone to turn on their cameras so that we can take a photo. I hope you don't mind. We just want to keep a record of those who came. Siti will take the photo.
Everybody's turn on. One, two. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Siti. All right. Thank you, Jihan. I think we've learned a lot today about the manifesto, how it came about, and what is the aim of the manifesto. And we are, all of us who have been involved in it, we are very excited about it. And now, like we mentioned, a very important thing is, how do we reach out to the Rakyat? How do you reach out to the adults? And I think that can come in the next Q&A session. Now, I would like to introduce our second speaker, Encik Muhammad Shani bin Abdullah, who is the chairman of SASDEN Malaysia. Encik Shani has a Bachelor of Agricultural Science from University Pertanian Malaysia and served 23 years with the Felder Group of companies, starting as a plant protection research officer, farm management, and resort management marketing. He has served one term with the Malaysian Human Rights Commission, Suhakam. He's also engaged in CSO activities with the Pahang Consumer Association, FOMCA, and SASDEN Malaysia. His presentation is titled As Stewards of Environment. I'll now like to hand over the session to Encik Shani.
Thank you, Ms. Leela, and thank you for the opportunity to share some of the environment chapter of the Manifesto Rakyat. And I would like to thank all those actually attending this presentation. Okay, I titled this presentation as stewards of environment. No, so it's actually everyone's responsibility, and it shouldn't be we everyone expecting someone else to do about anything, you know, public service. Okay. The preamble states that it's the environment chapter is an overarching framework on climate change. It's needed to meaningfully address cross-cutting environmental issues, which are interdisciplinary and wide-ranging, such as transparency, environmental and human rights impact assessments, sustainable development, and natural resources. So often, government processes are in silos. So, so the management of public policy is in silos. So, when there is actually environment damage occurs, it affects everyone. So actually, it should be cross-cutting, multidisciplinary, and interagency responsibility. So we need to understand the interdependence of all sectors, so that what's happening is understood by everyone, especially the Rakyat. Rakyat should understand. Only then the policymakers will take the effort to make the changes. Okay, so we go to the first, under the environment chapter, the first proposal is climate change action. So climate change is actually a top priority issue in view of the impact on economy, meaning livelihood, and also food security, lives. So public awareness must be raised on how climate change affect different stakeholders, especially the marginalized groups, and the urgency to prepare and deal with these impacts. So public awareness is actually very important. No, unless otherwise the politicians are not going to listen or adopt changes, because if the public is unaware of the interrelations, you know, the environment and the impact to the ordinary people, politician is not going to say simply bother. So it is important for us to educate the ordinary people, so that and the policymakers take interest in climate change. We are witnessing the consequences of extreme weather pattern, heavy rainfall, and unprecedented flooding. And it's happening like almost weekly basis. Even I've not come across rain in June, July. No, now it's like daily raining in my place actually. Okay, so the first manifesto under the environment chapter is to declare a national climate emergency and mainstream climate change in national development planning. So we need to declare emergency. You know, we only knew about the emergency declaration during the COVID. So when the emergency declared, a lot of things are done without going through certain processes, because it's the emergency, and a lot of things can be actually put aside. You know, even parliament sessions were put aside because of the emergency. But we shouldn't be actually doing that. But this is a climate emergency, meaning it is the top priority, and the budget should be allocated for tackling climate emergency. So that is actually the first proposal, a manifesto. And second is involve public as decision makers. So currently, a lot of decisions, even we hear, like even yesterday there was actually a protest in Chandabai regarding land being proposed to be taken for widening of roads, widening of rivers without proper consultation. But where environment is involved, there need to be more wider inclusion of public in the decision-making process, so that this process itself also becomes a educational process. And number three will be to institutionalize the public involvement process and require state assembly approval for degazetting forest reserves. So currently, it's only the chief minister is a one person kind of a prerogative to approve degazetting of forest reserves. So this should be this process should be democratized by at least to the state legislative assembly for approval. So that means there is actually a better check and balance mechanism where we can lobby the many state assemblymen to question and demand transparency in the process. And again, these proposals to degazette shouldn't be of automatic. It should be. At this juncture, any forest reserve should only be degazetted for public amenities, very essential public amenities. It shouldn't at all be degazetted for any commercial purposes, commercial development, because the forest is already limited. Even in Selangor, it is less than 30% area is forested, but the national commitment is to ensure 50% of the land area is covered by forest. So meaning, so that issue also should be highlighted, that any forest reserve for regazettement only for essential need for public, not for commercial purposes. And number four is incorporate green budgeting and green planning. Often we hear low carbon in the budget, green technology, but it's only a narrative or a phrase in a textbook. But if we incorporate green budgeting, means all aspects of government decisions and development should fulfill the green budgeting, meaning there shouldn't be overdevelopment, there shouldn't be over disposal, garbage disposal. It should be a sustainable development. So number five is actually to protect catchment areas. Under the Forestry Act, it requires the forests to be categorized according to function. But however, it's only categorized, but the category is not given due value, such as the catchment forest. Water catchment forest. That, as I mentioned earlier, as a water catchment forest, it shouldn't be disturbed. So it should be, there should be laws and policies to prevent any kind of encroachment or development into water catchment forests. I mean, we are already expecting, shortage of water, throughout the world. So without protecting the water catchment areas, we are inviting, we are hastening the water shortage. Number 6 is increase forest connectivity in fragmented landscapes, meaning it has to be in a overall concept, meaning if there are plantations going through replanting, they should incorporate plans to allow avenues of the plantation to connect adjacent forests which are actually separated or isolated. So this thing should be incorporated as a policy. It cannot be led to the plantation owners to implement, but there should be policies even into the scale of these things are incorporated into like mandatory certifications like MSPO, so that the plantation owners implement these policies. Number 7, redefine forest protection. Again, today we hear Menteri Besar or Timbalan Menteri Besar, pronouncing, forests or timber is their revenue source, but they have not solved their water problem, shortage of water, clean water, which actually is part of the deforestation. So we need to redefine even forests. I mean, if you refer to some definitions, forests can be just one single tree as a forest. So we need to redefine forest protection, and this should be adopted by all levels of the government. Number 8, establish sustainable forest conservation. Again, we hear sustainable forest management, but our rivers are continue to pollute, and the situation is not improving. So meaning whatever we hear is not actually being implemented at the forest management level. So we need to enable sustainable forest conservation. So the next one is actually environmental impact assessment. This is another controversial or very sensitive process. So EIA is actually introduced to ensure any development is takes care of mitigation, or if the EIA finds the damage is too much, so the assessment will allow the approving authority not to approve the proposal. But our practice is sort of understood whenever there is a EIA, is that it's understood to be will be approved by some way or other. So under the EIA, we propose that review the approval and evaluation process for EIA. So these points are actually elaborated in the manifesto. So the review of the approval and the evaluation process for EIA, currently the practice is that when the Department of Environment announces the EIA report being displayed for public consultation, it is there. But it is not being promoted aggressively in order for the stakeholders to they know about the consultation, and also to access and review these studies and provide feedback. So there should be better mechanism to promote, and also this report should be in various languages. It cannot be in scientific English language, which is actually defeats the purpose of the public consultation. And number 10 is to revise Sarawak's EIA logging standard. If anyone is new to this, Sarawak, if there is actually logging concession is awarded in a virgin jungle in Sarawak, it is not by law not required to have a EIA. So this has to be reviewed, and so this Sarawak EIA logging standard has to be revised. So number 11 is to replace EIA with the environment and human rights impact assessment. Even though currently it's EIA, but in certain areas where involving local communities, so the department requires the project proponent to do social impact assessment. But under the manifesto, it's proposed that the EIA is actually replaced with environment and human rights impact assessment. So in order to ensure the impact of the project to the community and also other stakeholders within the proposed project site. So what is EIA? If those actually are new to EIA, it's actually a legal procedure in which a project developer is required to provide environmental information to a consenting body so that this information can be used for better informed decision making. So, and usually it also involves publication and public comment disclosure. This information is usually provided in the EIA report, also called EIA impact, environmental impact assessment, environmental social impact assessment. EIA procedures vary widely from one jurisdiction to another. Okay, so it's a, such as a diagrammatical form. So the impact of the project upon the surrounding, so it affects environment, even terrestrial, aquatic, the landscape, erosion, landslide, humans, cultural, maybe there are burial grounds, geology, soil, water, air, and also climate. So next is on sustainable development. So there should be improved solid waste management. Currently, still we see stinging. Waste in front of houses, so that it should be improved. Meaning, 3R and all that is just a slogan. People has not adopted any changes to solid waste management. We cannot leave this solid waste management to a company, but it should involve whole of a government, whole of a society. So it should we should improve the solid waste management, and also it cannot be a landfill. So it should involve recycling and even making use of the biodegradable material as fertilizers, manures, and all, so on. Number 13 is inhibit urban sprawl to protect forests. Maybe many, to many, this is a very new concept, urban sprawl. Urban sprawl creates distance between working place and the residents. So it creates the traffic and again, traffic jams, highways, and so on. So by creating living spaces within commercial areas, within urban areas, we reduce the urban sprawl. So we should looking into more of mixed development, incorporating residents within commercial areas. So again, this will reduce the need for opening forests for residents and also commercial development. Number 14 is to increase infrastructure for pedestrian walkways, efforts to conserve public green areas. So again, so if I share this, I mean, many will think, no, we go electric, we can reduce the carbon footprint, but even electric cars are not low in carbon. So if we understand this picture, so I mean, more will take efforts to reduce emission, carbon emission. So we need to change our lifestyle. Okay, so again, I would like to share this. If we do as we are doing, so it is the bottom, and that it is actually is proven. So we need to make changes to improve our lives, and also to ensure our next generation and the coming generations have a planet, a healthy planet to live. Okay, so that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I can elaborate on the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Encik Shani. Very insightful as ever. And I think many questions. I'm sure the audience has many questions. Does anyone have a question at the moment? Or should I start with one? You know, we talk a lot about the environmental disasters or degradation. So how can the proposals in the environment chapter help reduce these disasters or degradation? For example, the floods, the landslides, how do they help reduce it?
If I to say, principally, I mean, when the rain falls in a virgin jungle, 90% of the water is actually held by the forest. So meaning it's like a sponge. So if we actually understand this scenario, then we'll understand why we need to conserve the forest or the vegetation to reduce the runoff, which actually becomes the flood. So whenever the forest is locked, so the capacity for the forest to hold water reduces. So when we open the forest for development, meaning there is no forest, so 100% of the rain has to find its way to waterways. So it has to overflow the rivers. So simply, it is we are not conserving the sponges which hold the rainwater. So we have no choice, but we have to conserve. We cannot be widening and deepening the river to solve the problem. We need to conserve and reforest to prevent flooding.
Would you say that many of the proposals that are in the Manifesto Rakyat actually identify the sources of many of the issues that are affecting Malaysia, and have come up with elaboration and have elaborated on how we can resolve these issues? Would you agree to that, Shani?
Yeah, agreed. Even though we are actually talking about green budgeting, increasing forest connectivity, redefine forests. Again, it goes back to actually to ensure the forest actually is conserved. Again, to do that, we need to have the mechanisms, approvals with transparency and accountability. Otherwise, we can talk about conservation, but the processor will actually undermine the efforts to protect. So we need to have the proper mechanisms and accountability to ensure those actually standards are actually preserved.
Yeah. We have two questions actually from Audrey. Well thought out suggestions for the protection of the environment. I support the idea of declaring a climate change emergency because it is. What are the strategic plans for enforcement of ensuring of laws and policies regarding environmental protection?
So when the government declares a climate emergency, meaning they all have already discussed and planned out the strategies and the responsibilities of all agencies regarding this environmental, climate change. So then all agencies has to play their part to mitigate and also avoid contributing to the worsening of the situation. So in this process, all will be involved. Even CSOs will be providing, professionals will be providing their inputs, so that multidisciplinary action can be taken to mitigate the worsening situation in managing environment. So declaration of emergency is actually to say the situation is very serious. So it gives, often we see, currently we see, we hear minister mentioning about climate change, but down the line, it is not really cascading down. So, but if it is a climate emergency, whole of the government has to prepare the machinery to comply with the standards of tackling the emergency. So one thing, if I were to add on, we need to start awareness and education at every level, at our even our residence level, so that often the policymakers or the politician disregard this because the ordinary person do not understand or appreciate the need for climate emergency. So if the Rakyat understand well, then the politician will take note of the need for climate emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Encik Shani. We'll open the session now to both of you. Both you and Jihan can answer the questions. I think that that will help both of you. One of the questions is, Jihan and Encik Shani, how do you reconcile if there are contradicting proposals? Example, for versus against GST. Jihan,
Okay.
would you like
I'm sure this GST question is not in the manifesto yet. I think that for the that's why we when we received the public submission, we had this policy town hall for people to deliberate and discuss. Of course, I think there are proposals that are not always in line with each other. Then I think sometimes we have to really find the common ground, or someone has to really make their own narrative. Of course, I think you can't say the manifesto Rakyat is void of any values and some kind of political tendencies, because there are things that people say probably we don't agree with, but we want to build our own broad coalition with things that we all can agree with. For example, those probably Malay ultra or right-wing extremists, they have their own views. They can argue with us, but these are not the views that we are going to take. We want to take probably a bit more pro-human rights and civil liberties. So there are some sort of values that we choose. So on the GST, and this I think can be have an academic discussion, but we have to put people's interests on the front. That's why we talk about people's voices, people manifesto, because one wrong policy can cause a lot of suffering. GST, people have the memory in the recent past that caused a lot of inflation, that actually caused a lot of suffering before the generation, the 14th generation. So all this has to be in the discussion. So for a manifesto Rakyat approach, we encourage discussion. We don't just shut you down like that. Yeah. So like here, it's good that you ask this question, because for coalition building, sometimes it takes pain because people will have different ideas. Yeah. So so that's why so go through what is in the economic justice section. You'll find that we are arguing for equitable, just economic distribution and things like that. Probably something that will suit your liking about your taxation question. Yeah, that's not something that we have firm position yet, but there are some principles that we should go through how to distribute the resource fairly, equitably. Yeah, so that's my take. Shani?
Yeah. I mean, again, GST is actually a politicized term. I mean, we just say we just take government has to collect fund, so it is a tax. You call it GST or whatever, it is a tax. And however you collect a tax, it is paid by an ordinary person, including company tax is paid by ordinary consumers. So that basic we must understand. So we would not be actually arguing about GST or SST. You know, tax is paid by consumer wherever in the world. Even you tax the businessman, he is going to pass the tax into the market. No, he'll charge through the services and the products. So so government has to find ways lah, how it does not actually burden the people. So again, it's a cost to collect the tax, so it should not be too costly to collect tax. So I mean, those things we shouldn't be arguing about. Oh, cannot tax. No, there is no choice. I mean, no argument. We need to pay tax so that the government works. The other thing is that we must ensure that tax is actually spent rightly. I mean, the issue is it is not spent rightly. So then we blame the tax. It's not the wrong. I mean, problem of the tax, but it's how it's accountability. So we are not actually demanding accountability. So it becomes a wasteful, tax. So again, we say, oh, we pay tax, it's going to waste. So we must play our part as a responsible rakyat. So we must participate in the local level, even at the resident association, the apartment GMB must play our role. So then only we know the whole government, how it works and all that. So how 2,000 poles awarded for 30 million kind of thing. So won't happen because people are not taking interest in public policies and also governance. So these things are happening. So I mean, so we should educate. No, we shouldn't be arguing about tax. No tax, less tax. No, that I mean, again, another principle is that government cannot make profit out of tax. Meaning, whatever they collect, they actually spend for the people. So if that way, so then if people understand that, there shouldn't be an argument over tax. No, whatever tax collected is spent on the people. So I mean, those kind of education need to be provided so that the rakyat at any level can contribute. They don't become a negative kind of a force. So they should understand and they should contribute positively and productively. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Encik Shani. And I think this is what Mark was also commenting on, that sometimes lengthy academic tomes can put off the youth.
Yeah.
And have we considered making short, hip, engaging videos and visuals to make it more appealing for our youth to join the bandwagon? That perhaps in addition to writing papers per SOP, they can be encouraged to make creative videos. And Mark gave an example, Sadhguru's Save the Soil campaign, engaged the younger generation via short, snappy doomsday clips, which went viral. His 300,000 kilometer motorbike sojourn across many nations assisted too. So how do we make ourselves more hip?
Thanks, Mark, for the.
Sorry lah, my ceramah.
Yeah, Mark gives us inspiration for the roadshow. Thanks for the idea. Yeah, definitely, I agree that the Manifesto Rakyat could be too lengthy for general people. It's 223 pages long, and I don't actually think that a lot of people are going to read the whole thing. But it's okay. But that's why we come with a poster, and our social media team is working on churning out the short videos. We know how to make the impacts. Yeah. And just that, I think it's not just limiting to the Manifesto Rakyat social media team. I think probably we can invite the response from general public to make good short videos, and we're happy to take it up on our platform and share around. Yeah, as long as it's talking about the policy proposals, about the manifesto ideas, I think we welcome the kind of creative inputs. Definitely.
Yeah, I think for us, the first step was first coming up with the manifesto. something that we could show to the politicians that the Rakyat also had ideas, and the ideas were sustainable and workable. And now that we have this manifesto, it's where do we go from here, right? You've got this this manifesto that's over 300 pages long, but how do we now put it in a language that everyone can understand and spread the word? Is that right, Jihan?
Yeah,
I
correctly.
suggest-
Correctly said, Leila.
I suggest maybe Beach organize a competition, TikTok competition.
Yeah, we are thinking of that. And I think that'd be very interesting as well. So, Shani, I'll put you in charge. No, but I think that's really a really good suggestion. And, you know, we can start getting as many of the youth in the universities and all that to try and come up with fun, engaging, but educational videos as well. And it captures the imagination. Another thing that we are also looking at for our webinars is to get communities that are facing issues, flooding issues, problems with their highways. We are we want them to come on board and talk to everyone about what are the issues that they're facing and hear from them. You know, what is happening? Was it resolved? How long have they had this problem? And I think the more we share and allow their voices to be heard, more and more people will come on board and realize that we do have a climate emergency in Malaysia and that we need to come up with sustained and concerted efforts to try and resolve this. We can't just talk about it for a while and then forget about it. You can't. You have to have sustained efforts now. And we have to be vocal. If we're not vocal, it's going to be very difficult. Another question is, Ketan, environment topics should be taught in school. Generally, the Rakyat are unable to understand the impact to our future. There have been quite a number of CSOs and NGOs that are doing environmental education under the co-curricula, but it would be great if environment would come under the curriculum itself as a topic. And I think there'll be better understanding as well. Next one is, conversations can be facilitated where consensus of the why, what, and how can be reached, creating ownership of the plan. Anyone would like to elaborate on that or comment on that?
So as I mentioned, involving the public in decision making. So it's actually this process, why, what, and how. So it becomes a education process. So if often public is involved in this kind of public consultations and decision making, they become aware of a lot of issues, problems. I mean, by hearing others' problem, they are educated why and how. So that's why this will happen when there is actually public consultation meaningfully. It is not selective meaningfully. So this need to be formalized in all level.
Totally agree with Shani and Leila. That's why I think the public consultation and in fact, the decision make at the local council level, if you involve the communities, you give them the way, a period or the power to decide on something, then they value the power. This actually can empower the communities and think about different solutions and ideas. That's why I think if the government become more transparent, although it takes a bit longer time, but I think it's meaningful. If you involve meaningful public participation, actually you get a lot back because you get a lot of consensus building and trust in the community, and then a lot of ideas to improve on the probably original proposal from the government. You see, this actually built a lot for the communities to own the ideas, to own the project. So I think conversation, is a way to go. So that's why talk about the local democracy, to have more public consultation. All this will be very healthy for our society in the long run.
Right. And also, participants today, if you're interested in helping us, reach out to members of the community. If, for example, you want to come in and help us with the videos, with ideas on how to make what we are doing more interesting, do get in touch with us, and we'll be very happy to hear from you as well. Siti will type in the email address. It's treesmalaysia@gmail.com, and then we can then share it with the rest of the beach as well. So we'll be very happy to have you on board, because Manifesto Rakyat it says itself, it's by the Rakyat. So if you all come on board, it makes what we are trying to do even better, and it gives a voice. And I agree with what Jihan says. There needs to be more transparency from the government. They have to be more open. They need to share more. And then when they do that, they also need to listen. And that's very important, because for many of us actually spend a lot of time going for meetings, going and attending workshops, Zoom meetings, because we feel that we need to attend and provide our opinion, and also provide some information so that we get better plans. But sometimes I think there's also a bit of frustration, because sometimes we are not heard. So there needs to be they need to be more open and listen more, and also allow people to provide feedback as well. And also, when you provide the feedback, you would also like to know whether it's being used. So I think it needs to be a more open channel. Looking at how it was, okay, I've been working in the environment for a very long time. So looking at how it was, say, even 10 years ago, compared to what it was now. In the previously, 10, 15 years ago, when we were trying to protect the forest, a lot of people would say, let the highway go through the forest rather than near our houses, because, we might, there'd be less impact on our housing area and all that. And the people used to be divided on whether these projects should go through forest reserves and all that. But now, just looking at what happened to the Kuala Langat North Forest Reserve, for example, it was overwhelming what happened, that everyone realized that you can't keep clearing your forests. You're running out of forests, and the forest actually plays a very, very important role. The government needs to recognize it. So now you're having issues like the Hulu Pera issue. You're having state government saying that perhaps clear some of the forest reserves to grow for agriculture. There needs to be a conversation. There needs to be a discussion, and we have to be extremely careful about what the government has to be extremely careful about what it is clearing. Any comments, Jihan and Encik Shani, about what I just said? That people are now more aware, they're more willing to voice out when there are projects and all that. There's more concern for the environment from the Rakyat now compared to 15 years ago.
Yeah, true. Again, like when the discussion on need for food crops, we shouldn't be jumping into opening up new land. No, we have. I mean, I always repeat this. 80% of our agricultural land is planted with one crop, and that crop produce 90% of it is exported. And it actually, even though now it's paying high price, but normally it's a low value crop, pays low wages. So we must remember those things. No, we shouldn't be, oh, it's a very export value. No, we are getting foreign exchange, but it's a low value. So we should be converting part of those land where there is actually suitable for food crops to plant food. And it should be through a public policy. You cannot be, oh, GLC is, no, you cannot be telling, no, you have to implement a policy, land use policy. So you have to enforce, okay, this area is for cash crop, vegetable, or fruits. Only then it will continue to be, it will be planted with food crops. Otherwise, it will be continue. No, now everyone is will say, no, it's paying high price, so nobody want to convert their oil palm because it's paying good. So public policy, it's only public policy. So we should be the discussion should be on public policy, how we are going to access food through, domestically. Again, a politician can play games. No, we need to plant corn, so they're proposing to open forest land. No, we are already. We must demand that National Land Council already promised to ensure 50% of the land is forest. So we must always remember that 50%. What is the status now? What is the status at every state? Because Malacca, we don't have forests. Selangor, only 30% forest. How we achieve the 50% forest? So it cannot be done individually. It has to go sing in synchrony. No, so the discussion should be all aspects, not just one day we talk about corn, next day talk about forest. No, it should be all encompassing.
Yeah, Dela, I would concur with you, your observation about today compared to like 10 or 15 years ago. I was not in this, I'm not in this green movement for a very long time, but I can sense that nowadays, I think it's not just a global trend. I think it is because when there's a problem actually really arise, then people feel the pain, they feel the consequences. They naturally demand for justice. They demand for solutions. That's why you can see this growing concern and voices even louder. They can just transcend ethnicities, religions, and all this because they're suffering from the consequences. So that's why I think we should not lose hope. I think it's a very optimistic for nowadays, a new generation demanding for better future because they can see that deforestation just depleting their natural resources and their future. You can see the haze coming and the temperature rising, sea level rising, all this. They worry about their future. That's why a lot of youth actually now talking about environmental justice. They go to the street and got inspired by Greta Thunberg. I think this is because it's a very primitive, natural thing for them to ask for it. So I think it's a good thing that our Malaysian politics talking about environment issues. I think this should be big for the coming general election. And we should hold all the political parties responsible talking about some commitments about the climate change, declaring the climate emergency or this. We should ask them directly for the response. The thing is about the consultation. Sometimes I also concur with your worries that a lot of times we give a lot of inputs, very good suggestion, but we heard nothing back. So I think this thing have to change. Yeah. Also working with Indian Forum, I can see a lot of frustration because there are many experts also among the Rakyat. They give a lot of analysis and all the good inputs, but they just put you aside and just I think they just disrespect all these inputs. And that's not the way the government should deal with the local people talking about the real issues and about solutions. So I guess something has to give. If they continue in this way, I think they will face the consequences, the anger from the communities and the voters. So they don't cry after that, yeah? Because I think all this real thing they should face, because whatever decision they make in this generation will affect the future one, and there's a cost to pay. Yeah.
Many times when we talk to the departments or to the politicians, they say, we don't have the answers, we're looking for the answers. Can we say that the Manifesto Rakyat is now a tool that we can use to say there are answers, and these are answers that have been well thought out, and they can actually provide solutions to a lot of the common issues that we are facing now in Malaysia?
I would say that the Manifesto Rakyat, especially for the environment chapters, we provide good directions. No point the government talking about solution if it gives the wrong direction. I think in the Pakatan and the BN manifesto last time, they talk about balancing the economic growth and environment protection. But I don't see the balance. It's all about the economic growth. If they can do away with some kind of mitigation, they still want to keep the project at all costs. This is not the way to balance it. So I think, so I think that's why when we I think this Manifesto Rakyat environment will provide the direction. I think it's all in good direction and some specific solution and recommendation to do the policies. If the government can promise they do in line, I think we are getting better. We can improve on our situation. Yeah. Of course, this is not an academic exercise, not research paper in the Manifesto Rakyat. Actually, it's still quite readable. It's not many pages, less than 10 pages. Yeah, if you're concerned about the environmental cost, I think this will be something that you can pick on and then push the politician to think more about it, to come up with even better solution or specific solution to all these problems.
Okay. The manifesto is a document, should be promoted to all political parties. I mean, of course, a layperson may not be interested to read the chapters, but in every political party, there should be sort of a succession plan, and there should be experts or individuals supposed to specialize in certain issues. So they should take up and sort of contact person or respondent to our call for endorsement. And again, this will sort of push their parties to identify the specialists at every level. By right, every division there should be a sort of a bureau chief. There should be a environment bureau chief. So then this should be we should deal with those specialists, and I mean we should promote every political party should have this kind of a succession plan to create specialists within them for policy discussions and policy development purposes. So even though many are just politicians for position, but as CSOs, we should be pushing those actually aspects so that we improve the politicians and also the political parties into policy development.
Thank you, Encik Shani. I think we have two very good questions, and I think this particular question reflects what happened after GE14. I'll just Just give me a minute to get to it. Okay. This is a question from Tracy. Her question is, how do we get these politicians to abide by what they claim to agree with? Like Jihan said, they can pledge anything at the end of the day. When we remind them of their pre-election promises, they say it's not legally binding. When they renegade on their promises and we call them out on it. I think we saw that for GE14.
Yeah, after the G14, if you will see how the Pakatan Harapan handling their manifesto, by the end of their governance, because the Sheraton both came in, you can see that the popularity rating is already plummeted to a new low. The government seems loss of direction. And if you look at the track record, if you go by the Pakatan, what is it called? The tracker, Harapan tracker, they follow all the promises. And you know the score is only 5% of what they promised have been achieved in 22 months. And majority not even started, only 25% started. So this is really staggering reality that you receive when the political party is not sincere about their manifesto. Yeah. So definitely voters are angry, disappointed. They actually still push the political parties to admit, to concede, or just to do more things to fulfill their promises. So I don't think it's in vain, you know. I think Pakatan Harapan actually learned a lesson. They definitely have learned a lesson about not taking it seriously on fulfilling the manifesto rakyat. So that's why for the coming general election, we should demand more and ask them to really hold to the words. Otherwise, you will face your votes going away if you're not doing what you have promised. Politician losing trust is not a good politician.
I mean, my take will be, we cannot be playing politics short term. No, we should be pushing for professional, politicians. Meaning, they, I mean, it has to develop. No, I mean, it will only happen if the members in the political parties demand for it. So, and I mean, you cannot just have a law to eliminate frogs. It is not going to happen. It's just we are going to satisfy ourselves. No, or it's not. They're going to be not going to be any people jumping. You know, I mean, that law does not eliminate or eliminate people without integrity. So those aspects must be chosen by the people, no, in the political parties, in the process. No, it's not every 5 years you find the best person. So it should be elected year after year. You choose, no, from their performance, from their articulation, from their planning activities in the branches. So you know who are serving, who are actually just holding the position. So it's, as a Rakyat, I'm just addressing any member of a party, like any party. This process has to happen every day. They should be policy making, planning. Then only they are actually honest politicians serving people. If they are just holding position, so every year they have an election. Only during that time they become leader. So we must be cautious of such people. I mean, in any political party. So this has to be developed long term. It has to be selected by selection. Selection cannot be just by 1-year election. No, it should be a lengthy period. So you will evaluate and select for character, performance, capacity, competence. So then only we can achieve, a government which is which promises and actually delivers. So now what we have is just they come with a manifesto before election. They say all the things. So then after winning, they can just give any reason, because we don't know who are they. So if we know who are they, then we can hold their word for. So then it is. I mean, it's actually it will happen. So now it is like forever. It will happen again and again. So it is not the manifesto. It is the persons who we select in the political parties who will actually ensure better governance and accountability. Sorry lah, ceramah panjang.
That's okay. Our last question, Jihan, this one is, I think, more for you. How many endorsements for the Manifesto Rakyat have you received at the moment? And what is your target? And THS says he likes the Environmental Bureau idea.
Yeah, currently, because this Manifesto Rakyat is just launched, I think for the main document, we have about 40, probably more than 40 already, endorsement for the main document. And then I didn't go and check every chapters. I welcome you to just endorse, and we aim to collect as many as possible. It's not just the numbers, I think it's the influence. It's how it symbolizes how much outreach we have done throughout different segments of society and different people to create that kind of hit. Yeah, that's why we don't just rely on the endorsement online. We actually have to go to ground. That we actually realize. We have to talk to real people. That we also realize. So we aim to go as many as possible. Yeah, I think there's another thing that I'm talking about political situation. I think it's one thing that we also should empower ourselves. Become more demanding. Yeah, and don't just vote blindly by the logo. Ask your candidates. What about their political views? What about their views on the environment? You try to engage them, and try to look out for more information about them. In near future, GBM will have this MP profiling website. Then you can see more about their information, their public education background, criteria, whatever they say in the public. We authors also should remember what they have done, what they have said, what do they actually personally represent. Yeah, we don't want just a park to root following the party order. We want people can stand up to our rights and our cause. Even the party don't think so, they should also stand up. For example, the deforestation, the gassement of permanent forests, all this. If it's not right to do, they should state their stance very clearly, because they represent people. Yeah.
The endorsements just started, right, Jihan? I mean, people could only could recently endorse the manifesto, right? I think it's just started this week, so that's why we are now going out and looking for endorsements as well. So we really hope more and more people will come and endorse, because the more endorsements we get, the more influence we have over the politicians and government departments as well. Also, another thing was we ourselves as Rakyat, like you said, Jihan, we need to educate ourselves. We need to be more demanding about, like you said, the expectations that we have for our politicians. But also, I suppose that when a politician stands up for what is right, it goes against what his party is advocating for, but he or she stands up for what is right. We, the Rakyat, should also then support that politician to show that their party that they have our support. And I think that's very important, because Many times those who go against what the party wants, they are dropped. So we have to stand up and say we support. And I think that's really important. Encik Shani, do you have any, just a last few words from both Jihan and Encik Shani? Jihan, would you like to, any final words from you?
Shani, you should go first.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So it's actually everyone's role to educate and also call for environmental compliance or protection. We are party to a lot of international conventions, and we are actually not understanding what is the obligation of the state of the country towards the conventions. And actually, it's the role of the people to demand that government fulfills the obligations. Actually, those are actually fulfills the many of the manifesto objectives. But again, the politician, they go to these COP meetings, but come back, they never talk about it. So it's again, as Leela mentioned, we have to educate ourselves, know about these conventions. Of course, we should know all the conventions are, if possible, like Labor Convention, Human Rights Convention, so that again, it can be related to serve the environment objectives. Again, not all are interested, but if anyone interested, you all of course can contact us. So I'm ever willing to give my ceramah or share experience. So we can start from there, then more people will join, then we can make the ripples into tidal waves. Thank you.
Thank you, Encik Shani. Jihan?
Thank you all for still staying with us until late, and I really appreciate that. Probably most of you all hear us out for the first time, and I saw from the chat so that many really appreciate this project initiative. I thank you for your support, and I think that this project is sincerely for the people, and from the people and for the people. And I hope that you join us in this bigger social movement to push for something you also believe in. So let's work together and spread the words, tell people about this manifesto Rakyat, and perhaps you can also endorse whichever chapter you agree with. And I hope to see you in future in our campaign. And I do get quite some good suggestion and recommendation in this event today. I think I can talk about, I can think about it and bring it to the committee to help launch even a better, more effective campaign to let people know about our manifesto Rakyat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jihan. Thank you, Encik Shani. And to all our participants, thank you for staying until 10:10 and for contributing to this very interesting and informative discussion. We hope today's session will be the first of many sessions, and we hope to make it more exciting, more fun, more informative, and that all of you will continue participating in future Manifesto Rakyat events and will endorse the Manifesto Rakyat. And like I said, we would love if all of you would come and join us and help us reach out to more people, help us maybe come up with more fun events and ideas, and so that we can reach out, not just to the youth, but to everyone, and everyone likes it when it's more fun and informative. So how can we do that? So maybe we'll do a TikTok competition after all. So thank you again, everyone, and we hope to see you for the next beach webinar. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night. Thanks, Beverly.
I thought if we could all just Bev and